John Singleton, congratulations on receiving your very first Emmy nomination for your work on The People versus O.J. Simpson. I want to start off by asking, how did it feel when you got the news you'd been nominated?
It was amazing. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. I was floored. I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't even thought about it to the days before. It's like the night before, someone said, the the nominations come out tomorrow, and I said, oh, okay, that's cool. And then in the morning, the DP of the whole show, my friend, called me up, and he got a nomination, and he was like, wow, you got nominated. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, you did. I said, you got to show me proof. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
So he showed it.
Well, you were one of three directors on the show, and all three of you guys got nominated. The other two being Ryan Murphy and Anthony Hemingway, which I thought was really great because it showed what a collaborative effort directing this 10-part limited series was.
Yes. Yeah, it was. It was very much so. It was like we were like a team, like a basketball team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all had a certain effort to like tell the story in the best way possible, and really find the nuances to what was going on, and dramatizing it. And we had the best actors around. I mean, some of the best actors ever working in TV. With Sarah Paulson and Courtney B. Vance and Cuba Gooding Jr. and David Schwimmer and of course John Travolta, and it was just really, for me, it was a kind of an adventure because this is my second time doing TV. I've just done feature films, and then for me it was like I'm thrust on to like the what's it called, the first class team, and I gotta like roll with it, and get in there and quarterback and win the game. That's the way I looked at it.
Second time this year, right? Because you did an Empire episode. Was it?
That was last year. That was the year before.
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah, so that was the second time. Yeah.
Right. I couldn't remember if it was before their winter hiatus or after. Anyway, talking about The People versus O.J. Simpson. You are from LA. You grew up here. You were around during the O.J. Simpson trial. So did you bring any of those personal experiences to directing this episode, The Race Card?
Just the fact that I wanted to have a sense of heightened excitement for everything that was happening, and everything that was happening within that courtroom and outside the courtroom, because it was a really sense of heightened excitement of what the outcome was going to be on this case. And so I was just thinking in terms of when you're trying to direct something and tell a story, you want to sustain the audience's attention, and sometimes doing that, you have to find the right rhythm for that. And that's what I was looking for within this piece.
And what was that right rhythm? And how did you find it?
Just really not like an obviously sustained tension that wasn't a tension that wasn't obvious, a kind of an undercurrent of tension that was there, that was constantly there about this whole thing that you couldn't put your finger on, but you could feel it. And that's what I was going for within this episode.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit more about what this episode is about. The extraordinary thing about this show, and I was talking to the writer of this episode earlier, Joe Robert Cole. He said they tried to show the 360 of experience. In other words, you could understand where everyone was coming from, whether you thought OJ was guilty or innocent. And
that's true.
And so let's talk about the perspective that this episode is from.
Well, I mean, it's from the perspective of the defense and the prosecution. We see both sides. There's a sequence earlier in the opening where you see both the prosecution team and the defense team mounting strategies in their respective offices. And Joe Cole smartly wrote cross-cut both of the teams, and we were like intercutting even sentences of from one team to the next. And so I had to think visually about how I was going to transcend from one to the next. And that was beautiful. I love that. I love that kind of stuff, because you can only do that within film. You can only do that within the visual medium of storytelling, and having these characters who are diametrically opposed cross-cut with each other, and it just works as a seamless whole.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. It was great editing on the page, and all I had to do was just think about how exactly I wanted to shoot it in a very stated way, in which knowing what shot was going to transcend, and what shot from Marshall Clark was going to transcend into Johnny Cochran or any other characters, or Bob Shapiro.
Mm-hmm. So give us some insight. Are you a storyboarder? Are you a shot lister? I mean, when you're figuring out these images that you're going to get on the set to translate this vision.
Yeah, well, that sequence was the only one that we really storyboarded, that we had time to. You don't have time to really do it in a lot in TV, but that sequence was definitely storyboarded. I used one of Ryan's storyboardists, and I had him in the office, and I just talked to him about what I wanted. We did some thumbnails, and I was like, this shot should go into this one when Marsha looks here, and then the camera moves right to left, and then goes over to Johnny or to Shapiro or to Dershowitz. It goes left to right. So you do these counter moves, and they intercut kind of seamlessly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of it is just really like, you know, is a lot of shot listing, but some of it's thinking on the fly, man. It's just really like going in and thinking about what the blocking is, and seeing the actors do the blocking, and then going from that.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if you talk a little bit more about making the transition into TV, since it is a recent thing for you. I mean, was it that big of a shift? Because the lines seem to be blurring a lot more. More and more movie people are going to TV and vice versa.
Well, for me, I call TV directing CrossFit for feature directors. Like you know, you got to really shoot at it's not about being a shooter, it's about being a director, a holistic director, about being able to get great images, but phenomenal performances within a brief period of time. So that's not, it's not about, you know, it's not the province of people who just like pretty things. You know, you got to find a way to have a happy medium, to basically be there, you know, like almost a theater director at the same time. But you can't linger on stuff and not move the camera at all.
Right.
And I love it, because it goes back to independent filmmaking, of being able to shoot something very, very quickly at an elevated quality. And that's how I look at it.
Right. And that is where your background is. I mean, you started out very much an independent filmmaker with Boys in the Hood.
Yeah, I mean, Boys on a TV movie schedule. We did it so quickly. So, you know, I guess I'm kind of back to that, you know, doing it in a quick fashion, you know, and making it look good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, does it, when you have to think on the fly in that way, and, you know, you might not have all the money in the world to do something, does it spark creativity in a way? Or
it does. What it does for me is it increases the spontaneity of what goes on film, on the image. It makes it heightened. You know, I think a lot of times in the feature world, people are so relaxed, and they don't have the time constraints that people have in television, where they got to move.
mm-hmm.
And with this, I think I kind of just slid right into doing it, because, you know, that's the way I'm used to working overall, whether or not I'm doing a small budget film or a big budget film.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk a little bit more about the thematics of this episode, because one of the great things about this show is that it deals with a wide range of issues. It's not just about the O.J. Simpson trial. It's about racism, sexism, celebrity.
Yes.
You know, so this episode, when I was talking to Joe earlier, he said we wanted to show the African-American perspective on this trial, and to show the three perspectives of Johnny Cochran, Christopher Darden, and O.J. Simpson, these three African-American men who have different views of the world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I've always felt that television and film in general, when it comes to Black people, has a kind of a monolithic view of them, as if they're all the same, especially Americans. And like, you know, you have a show, and all the Black people are pretty much the same. They're from the same socioeconomic background, in terms of where they are in their lives, or educational background, or our experiences, and that's just not true. That's not true with any people. People are not all the same within whatever they are. And what Joe Coles did very, very smartly is he clearly defined the lines between what made Cochran different, what made Darden different, and what made OJ different. And there were three distinct, different black men who had certain paths that they followed in their lives. And so when you saw them interacting with each other, he just stayed very, very true to who they were, and the combustibility of what that came about. That scene, Joe, where he is questioning OJ, how many people did he encounter or with socialize with and everything, and how OJ reacts. And OJ, looks at him and just says, "Hey, OJ has created a whole world itself as a black man that is fully unique to the majority of people of black men in America. He can't conceptualize what Johnny was saying, but no, comes around at the very end of the scene, and then he's also a little bit defensive and explains why he had the need to reinvent."
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely. What's also interesting in this episode is that you're setting up sort of the, shall we say, seeds of the downfall for the prosecution, because they bring in Mark Furman as a key witness.
That was really something. Like Stephen Pasquale, he was so dope in that part. He just the subtleties of his acting. When I started that whole thing, Furman comes in with just you see his and the camera swings around, and he's like in the elevator, black and Latino, and you just know it's Furman. It's just nothing, no dialogue or nothing, just Furman before he even encounters Dart.
Right.
I like the communication when it's subtle and not over dramatized. It's just right there. You know exactly what's going on. You feel it. You don't have to say it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's so much more effective than, I guess, a Snidely Whiplash type.
He's not Snidely Whiplash, and he's not what was that one that used to go after Boris and Bullwinkle and Rocky? Boris.
Oh, Boris and Natasha.
Yeah, he wasn't like Boris, like, get Moose and Squad.
Get that, OJ. Yeah.
That glove. The glove. The OJ.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about collaborating with Joe Cole on the script. I mean, after it was written, was there much input by you to sort of guide the direction of it?
Yeah, only thing we talked about was the big showdown in the courtroom between Cochran and Darden. I told Joe I wanted to get the accounts that were in the LA Times, because I remember hearing of that Darden's body language was just changing. He was contorting and jumping up and down and everything and stuff when Cochran was giving his rebuttal of what Darden had presented in court. And it was in the text of the LA Times article that came out the next day. So I wanted to find a way to dramatize that and show it what the reporter was describing. And so I just added that whole thing of his uncomfortability and try to include as many shots of Darden within Cochran talking. Instead of just having to cut to Darden, you would see him right at Cochran's side, listening to him, bristling at the words as they became more and more intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a fantastic scene, by the way. I remember watching that for the first time. I was like, man, this is really good. So any plans to come back to the next season of American Crime Story, or?
I don't know. I hope so. I mean, Ryan's alluded to it, but we'll see. I mean, we worked really well together. I mean, I loved working with those guys. They're like the best in TV.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I tell Ryan, I said, you're like my TV big brother. I learned a whole lot from him. And I'm working on my own shows right now. I have a show at FX as well called Snowfall.
Mm-hmm.
And I have another show called Rebel. I think TV is my thing. It's a great medium to work in. It's like making a movie every other week.
Well, it has become more and more sort of like what independent cinema was in the 90s. There's a lot of creative freedom. And so,
Yeah. I mean, but it's always, I mean, when you're spending this much money, it's always control freedom. But what I love about it is there's such a competition for viewers.
mm-hmm.
There's a competition for getting the attention of the public. So within that, the people, the networks are like saying, hey, give us your best. Give us whatever you think is going to really capture these people and keep them there watching whatever you're doing. And I love that because I'm all about, making whatever I do the most interesting thing possible at that time.
Mm-hmm. So when you guys were making this, you could not have anticipated that it would have this kind of social.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, I knew it was going to be huge in a way, but I didn't know it was going to be this huge.
Mm-hmm. And it's extraordinary that they were able to find, you and everyone involved were able to find so many layers to this story. I mean, burying underneath what we know about the Simpson trial.
Yes.
So, you have been around for a long time, about 20 some years now. You got your first Oscar nominations when you were 24 years old for Boys in the Hood. And you're actually the youngest person ever nominated for directing. It's a little historical factoid there. What did that kind of recognition mean for you that early in your career?
It made it for me. It was like, oh, well, I better take this directing stuff seriously. So I mean that zero, yeah, that was what it is. I was okay. I gotta really buckle down, and I have to study my craft even more. It was kind of intimidating for me because I was like, wow, just stepping into the pool into this career, and then this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it was a good thing because it made me lock myself up in my house and watch really many movies and try to be as well read as possible and create my own philosophy of what type of filmmaker I wanted to become.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I ended up doing. And hey, I'm still here, some 20-some years talking to you. It could have been a flash in the pan.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was the genesis of that? I mean, you had gone to film school for a little while. Yeah. And,
I went to school at UC and I graduated in May of 1990, and by June I was in pre-production on Boys in the Hood.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, what was the genesis of that idea? Was it just to, show what your...
Just me and my friends talking on the block about what kind of movies Hollywood doesn't make, and if we had an opportunity to make a movie, what kind of movie would we make? And that film was with me for years before I even went to film school. It found its genesis on the bus rides that we would take to and from South Central to Hollywood to go to the big movie theaters with the best sound. And there were movie palaces back then, and we would just watch movies. And some movies we loved, some movies we didn't like, and we were like, "Wow, what? Or what would we make?"
Mm-hmm. Just tell your, a different kind of story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which it seems to be. We're seeing more and more of that now on television, more of a diverse landscape. And
yeah, because it's hard to get true dramas made within in the film, in movies. But now the medium has changed where television, you don't have to be limited to 2 hours to tell any type of story. You can extend the storytelling over a period of time. You can play with time and space. tell forward story and backstory. It's more of an experimental medium than film is. I think that's what people are really finding now, and that's why they're gravitating towards all different means of television.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations again on your nomination. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Take care, Zach.
You too. Thank you.